let's get the ball rolling. April, can you give us a little bit about your background in publishing and how you came to become an expert in Amazon ads?
Well, I think I was born a natural geek. And so technology, I've got 35 years background in IT, coding, analytics, and all of that stuff. And I wrote my children's books for my grandkids. And so I kind of naturally did it as a legacy and passion project. And it turned into a second love for me, where I actually ended up leaving my job and doing publishing as a business. And my natural talent in IT just made me lean towards, okay, what can I learn? How can I drive the eyeballs on the books? And so that's really how I got started. I feel I started doing publishing for others and becoming a self-publishing coach because of the sheer volume of people who were just so lost in the publishing process and having being taken advantage of or having spending hundreds and thousands of dollars on things that just weren't working. So that's, the short story for me, but I absolutely love working with authors and Amazon ads. I love all of the technology around it.
Yeah, I think that one of the first things to evaluate is, are your books ready for Amazon advertising yet? Walk us through the decision-making process for how to determine whether or not you're ready to start running Amazon ads.
Yeah, you really need to have a high quality book. If your cover is not professional, you don't have so let's do what you should do instead of, the mistake. So have a really high quality, well edited book, because as soon as people start reading it and leaving reviews, it's going to tank your reviews if it's not. You want to have that cover so that it really attracts the eyeballs and it's pleasing. It's not confusing. A nice hook that will attract your target audience, maybe some additional images loaded up inside there, some A+ content that will turn more browsers into buyers. But you really have to make sure you've got a good, solid book and that you understand your target audience. Because if you don't know who you're reaching out to, what they're looking for, what their pain points are, and how your book solves those, it's going to be very hard for you to get your marketing message correct.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And it sounds like, for a pain point, those kinds of things, that would be more relevant to nonfiction, of course, where you're wanting to
True.
make sure that you're solving a pain point.
Mhm.
For fiction authors, it's more about the storytelling, of course.
Yeah, the tropes and the things that they're looking for, just knowing what those target readers of yours really enjoy, and make sure you're speaking to them, whether it's in your hook, your description, or the text that you place on your ads.
How can an author know whether or not, I mean, of course, every author probably thinks that their book is a great book, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't have maybe
Mhm.
published it yet, right? They would go back to continuing to edit, like they think that it's ready for an audience. How can an author know whether or not that kind of thing is true?
Well, I would say, having a street team, a beta group, or being able to make sure that you get it in front of your target audience. A critique group is great. Having an editor who is really well versed in your specific genre. I love my editor for the fact that when, if I'm sending her something and the rhymes all over the place or the story's not working, then she is bringing kind of rallying me into making sure that in the end it's going to be exactly what that genre is expecting. And for me, I'm a children's book author. While I've published a lot of other children's book authors as well, I do have nonfiction and novels, and it really boils down to making sure that the story is vetted. And sometimes people don't really know until they start running the Amazon ads and they're seeing that their message is maybe missing the mark because people just aren't buying or they're not clicking on the messaging that they're putting out there.
Right. And I would say, so a couple of things that I want to point out there that you said. So one is having a beta group or a street team. So usually a beta group or beta readers, for those of you who aren't aware of that term, beta readers are usually people who will read an early version of your manuscript, provide you some feedback, and then you can use that in your editing process. And generally, those beta readers are just, readers of the genre. They are not professional editors. They just love they love the genre that you write in. They know all the tropes. They really can recognize whether or not something is sort of hitting the mark or missing it. For example, I love lit RPG books. If I read, if I were to beta read a lit RPG book and, like there's no character progression in terms of like the power levels or like there's no like sort of hidden worlds or there's no like stat blocks or things like this, I might be like, oh, some of these things are missing. And you don't need to always have all of the tropes, right? But you should need some of them to actually sort of fit within the genre. So those are beta readers, non-professional editors that will give you feedback on an early version of your manuscript. And then a street team, usually that could be something like your beta readers, but oftentimes a lot of authors will readers that are on their street team, those will be people that will maybe read a review copy of your book. So a review copy is different from a beta copy. A review copy is basically this book is what is going to be published. And so in 6 weeks or maybe 8 weeks, I'm going to be publishing this book. I'm giving it to you early ahead of its publication date. And in exchange for getting that free early copy, I would love it if you could leave a review on Amazon or Goodreads or BookBub, etc. And so those reviewers can be extremely helpful. Although I would say that sort of feedback, you have to make sure that you are doing that early enough where if those reviews that you're getting from those readers are not great, then you would need to be flexible about maybe pushing back the publishing deadline, the publication process so that you could, re-edit, move things around or something along those lines. And again, anyone is welcome to drop questions in the chat about any of the stuff that we're talking about right now. And Store Origin has features for both beta copies and review copies separately so that you can either get feedback on those early manuscripts or get reviews from early readers. And along with that, I would say another great starting place is starting to build your mailing list as well, because that can be a great source for finding beta readers or review team members. The other thing that you mentioned is you want to make sure that your description and things are hitting the market, hitting the target, hitting your book covers are hitting the target. I would say another great way to test that out early on could be if you have built up a mailing list, you can share those early versions of your book covers or your book description with your mailing list audience and see what is enticing them. Maybe you do an A/B test with two different emails and see, which button gets more clicks depending on how the book description is worded or something along those lines. And so, yeah, the other thing that I would mention there as well is if you're running Amazon ads and you don't have any reviews on your book, so there's no social proof on your product page on whatever retailer that you're running, we're talking about Amazon specifically though. If you don't have that social proof, have reviews from readers there, those Amazon ads are much less likely to convert, even if you have a great book description, even if you have a great book cover, etc., because other people just want to see that, they want to see that social proof that, hey, this is a great book. Right. And so building that review team early can be extremely valuable because that way you can launch the book with reviews on day one.
Absolutely. That's an important part. Although I have been experimenting a little bit with running ads right out of the gate with an ebook pre-order. And I've been amazed at the kind of progress that I get at expediting the indexing process on Amazon. So I do agree that you should have reviews, but I've been doing a little experimentation, and it's not just about, the reader and getting the reader, but also getting Amazon to start indexing your book. Because so many people will come to me and say, April, I just uploaded the book and I can't even pull it up by my title, or I'm searching by my author name, still doesn't have it. All of these keywords, phrases that I created in my metadata, and they're just not coming up. So I will sometimes, and I've been experimenting with even prior to the reviews coming, and I've been just really amazed. It's got some important things that I see happening and expedited with Amazon by just getting some ads up even early on before your book is ready.
Yeah, that is an important point as well because there are those systems on the back end where it's like, sometimes it'll be a few days where you've just published the book and it's not coming up in the search results and at all. And by running those Amazon ads and getting a few buys or a few pre-orders on that book will help pull it up in the search rankings a little bit faster than
Mhm.
if your book has never been purchased before. It's just not going to be indexed as quickly and stuff. It's probably not going to be prioritized by Amazon and things like that. Because the search rankings and all that stuff, it's all dependent upon sales and reviews and all that stuff. We do have a question from someone that asked, very relevant, how many reviews should I have before launching ads? Is there a, outside of the scope of running ads on a pre-order to sort of expedite the indexing process, which doesn't necessarily mean that your ads are going to be profitable, but can help you show up in those search results sooner
Mhm.
rather than later. Is there like a minimum number of reviews that you would recommend people have before really
Yeah.
pushing Amazon ads?
Recommend 10 or more reviews. For a minimum, I would say five, because without that, you don't have that social proof. And I'm assuming that we're all publishing high quality books and that the reviews are going to be great. If you're getting bad reviews and you're not at least a 4-star or greater, then I wouldn't run ads to it. I would clean up whatever the issues are, relaunch it, and then start ads again.
Yeah, because if you start out in a hole, it can be much harder getting out of that hole than simply republishing it. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
We have a question here. Someone said, how do you launch on a pub date with reviews? For me, reviews cannot be posted on Amazon until the pub date, even with pre-orders live. And I think that was maybe a question related to something that I had said. And so just to clarify there,
I
when
do
I say,
comment on that. I'm
yeah,
happy to answer.
yes, I would love to hear from you. But I would just say when I said that you can launch the book with reviews, I just meant that on the publication date, since people have already read the book and hopefully they've already written their review as well, that way it's fresh in their memory. On publication date, you send out an email, or if you're using StoreOrigin's review copies feature, you click mark as published on StoreOrigin. They'll send your reviewers on StoreOrigin an email saying, hey, the book is now live. You can go and leave your reviews on Amazon, Goodreads, or BookBub, or etc. In someone else mentioned in the comments there, and this is another good trick to mention as well, that some authors will publish the paperback version of their book on Amazon and use that to start getting reviews on that book, and then they'll publish the ebook version, and they're not really pushing that paperback version. They are just using that as a placeholder for people to leave reviews ahead of the ebook publication. And the reason people do that is because uh Amazon's algorithms are, a lot of it is about like momentum, and speed when it comes to launching and all this kind of stuff. And so if you have that paperback version with those reviews ready, then when you launch and publish the ebook version, you can launch with more momentum out of the gate with that ebook version if you've already got reviews pulled over from the paperback onto the ebook version. But April, I would love to hear from you a little bit about that
Yeah,
as
so
well.
it's not exactly related to Amazon ads, but I think it's important. One of the things that I was able to do, or that I recommend with my authors, we usually start the opposite way. We start with the ebook pre-order, and not sure how many of you are actually able to upload your book and still remain at that 99-cent level. But what I've got a little trick that I use with my children's book authors where we just don't upload the interior. If you leave it out and just put your cover and make it a pre-order, then you can launch it with if you check off that 35% royalty, you can launch your ebook for 99 cents on pre-order. Now, if you've got, let's just say you target 100 people on your launch team and only half of them follow through, and the ask to my launch team is buy the ebook for 99 cents, and then when the ebook goes live, put a review on it. So as a result of the pre-orders that are happening, Amazon actually counts them as sales, and you end up being a #1 new release and even a bestseller before your book ever releases. So that can help get a little bit of extra attention with that bestseller banner and some other things You can also use that in your advertising. And then once you've got these, 99-cent books purchased, say you've got 50 people that do it, so you've got 50 sales. Now the ebook is launched and it's no longer in pre-order. And those 50 people have provided reviews. That gives you quite a lift before your print book is even ever available. So it has reviews already as long as they're linked together. And I'm assuming that it's going to be a lot easier for your launch team to purchase a 99-cent ebook than to purchase a paperback to leave you reviews. So it's less expensive, it's less of an ask, and it's also going to provide you that social proof much more quickly. So that's kind of how I go through that process. Before your 3 days before your ebook goes live, you just have to log in, upload the interior, and then it may require it to go up and you can put it at regular price at that point. But the 99 cents, the reason I do that is because we need sales. We want to be a bestseller. So by using a combination of your launch team and this kind of scheduled launch, the way that using the ebook, it allows you to really get some momentum and drive a lot of traffic to that ebook right off the bat.
Yeah, and the other great thing about that as well, and we got a question about it, I got a couple of related questions about this, is that when you make those sales of the pre-order, those people that leave reviews from those sales will get the verified
Yes,
purchaser badge on their Amazon reviews
correct.
versus when you are distributing review copies just as downloads, either via Story Origin or whatever other method you might want to use. If you're distributing it as a download from another site, then when people leave a review on Amazon, and yes, people can leave reviews on Amazon's for things that they have not purchased through Amazon, uh, those reviews do not get the verified purchaser badge on their reviews. And it may sometimes take extra time for Amazon to actually review and publish those reviews from your readers if they don't see that that person has purchased the book on Amazon. So those are all good ways. And another thing that authors will sometimes do is at launch, if it is possible for them to, for example, if their book is in KU, they might, for the first 5 days after the book is launched, use that 5-day KDP countdown to make their book free for the first 5 days, just get as many downloads as possible and get as many, and hopefully, those downloads will convert into some number of reviews on their book, and they'll use that to get their reviews. And then Amazons are much easier once you have a decent number of reviews on your book, of course. So just to get back on top, we've been talking a lot about reviews, and it's so incredibly important to running Amazon ads, of course. But I also want to get back to specifically Amazon ads. So
Yes.
what are some of the common mistakes that you see that authors make when they are launching Amazon ad campaigns?
So, one of the things I would say is having unrealistic expectations. Amazon ads is not going to work for everybody. And it does take some time to build up and to be able to work through. And sometimes it can take 2 months to get there. I've had authors that work with me for a month or so, and because I do an Amazon ads course and we do hands-on stuff together. And then I do offer help with authors who need one-on-one guidance and coaching through this or want me to help with their ads. But one gentleman was like, it's been a month. I'm not getting very much sales. And I said, but look at all the data we're collecting. I just said, hang in there, don't give up, and let's continue to try some different things. And he ended up with very profitable ads after that have continued to be profitable. But it took about 2 months to get there. So
And
that's an important part. Make sure you're not starting in September if you want book sales for Christmas to really be maximized, right? So start earlier when you've got big Prime days coming or things like that. And another big mistake is the whole set it and forget it kind of thing, where people will create some ads and then just leave them there. You really have to actively manage your ads with intention. If you're looking for visibility, maybe you can run some brand ads that will appear and show people more about your book. Try a video ad. Those are fantastic. There's a lot of things that you can do to make sure that you get that visibility. If you are looking to help make more sales, which most of us are with Amazon ads, then you can't just start and leave it. One tip that I'll give you is when you're first getting started, do some automatic ads. Let Amazon put your book in front of people that it believes are a good fit for your book. They're very simple and easy to run. And then you have to really be able to look at those ads and figure out what is getting the clicks, what are people searching for, and how are they finding your book, and what's converting. Because if you find, let's just say one example I had is I had my own book that there was an author, a Christian author, whose books converted really well for my book. And it was just a discoverable thing by looking at the details that was an automatic ad that ran. So when I found that, then I have to make my ads smarter by pulling in some more detailed keyword ads, product ads, right? Build off of what you're learning and continue to make your ads smarter. So, just being proactive with this. And if you don't know a lot about Amazon ads, I would say find a coach or find a class and walk through it. Get more comfortable, because it's so easy to get confused and to spend thousands of dollars on something that just isn't working because you don't know all the right levers to pull and the right things to push out there.
Right. Yeah, that can be so difficult when you don't know, it's not like there's a light at the end of the tunnel necessarily, right? Where you can see that you're making progress. You can run bad ad after bad ad after bad ad, and then suddenly one just starts working. And it's not necessarily like that you've been it's not necessarily that you've been making like incremental progress towards something working. It's just like suddenly you found the right messaging and you just found the thing that works when all the other stuff didn't. And it's really hard to invest when you don't know if you're going to discover sort of that like gold nugget per se.
Well, here's some
Yep.
intentionality to put behind it, right? If you're going to start an ad campaign, then why not put an automatic ad out there? Let Amazon uncover some things, because Amazon knows a lot about the buyers that are showing up and purchasing in your genre. They also know a lot about your book, because if you're setting up the metadata well, and not setting it up well is a mistake, right? We need to really make sure that we've got good keywords and categories. And if you're not sure, get some help on that. Otherwise, your book is going to just going to drown, and it's not going to ever be shown. But if you've got some good keywords, then start an automatic ad, number one. Number two, take all those keyword phrases that you've got, the 7 keyword phrases, and put them in a keyword ad. It's going to escalate how quickly that Amazon indexes for those keywords. You can also throw in some competition, like the titles of other books and titles of other authors that are comp titles for you. Perfect keyword ad. Keep it small, throw in those important things, and then a product ad, which would be, other competitors by their ASINs, right? So throw those 3 things to start with any new book launch is going to help you get discovered and help you collect enough data to figure out what to do next.
So when you are running the Amazon ads, doing the automated ads to sort of figure out, okay, what is the correct target audience, what keywords are going to work, all that stuff. How much money do you need to spend to sort of run that learning process and figure out what is going to work before you start to scale things up?
Yeah, I always tell authors to come to the table with an understanding of what they can spend as a budget, and afford to spend, and consider it just an investment in learning or an investment in figuring out what's going to work for your book. I have some authors that will say $100 or $200 is like, they're willing to put that in, but they need to keep it small. So if that's the case, I need to make sure that the spending doesn't go crazy. Some will say, I know I've seen a lot of experts out there talking about starting with small bids and letting it take time and crawl up a little at a time, a little at a time. That might be good if you've got a low budget to just kind of see where things will start serving up. I tend to be very impatient. And so if I'm launching a book and I'm going all in with, I don't know, $88, 88-cent bids, because I just want the visibility. I want Amazon to serve up this to get my keywords indexed quickly. And if that's not going to happen, I just don't want to delay that.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I mean, if you are setting your bid at a penny and you have $100 budget, yes, you would theoretically be able to, have that ad be shown a bunch of times, but your ad will probably never be shown at all because your bid is too low to ever compete. And so you'll just never even spend the budget. And so it can be extremely valuable at the early stages to have a high bid just so that you can do that early learning and quickly iterate, because there is so much value from speeding up that process.
Yeah.
Because when you are bidding in really small amounts and your ads not showing up all that much, maybe here and there, like it could take weeks to months to figure out whether or not your ad is even working.
Right.
And you have to be able to iterate on these things quickly. Otherwise, you'll just never get to having a profitable ad because you're not sure what works yet. And we had someone that had asked as well, how do you know what other authors are converting from? Because you mentioned there that on one of your books that you found that another Christian author, their readers converted very well for you. Is there a place in the Amazon Ads
Yes.
dashboard that will show you that?
Yeah, there is. So let's just take an example that this was discovered with an automatic ad. When you create an automatic ad and then you go in, I always say once a week, go in and check the ads. And you can look at targeting and you can see what's happening as far as like how many clicks and how many orders. But don't stop there. There's a search terms right underneath where you get the targeting. There's something called search terms. So it shows you what your customer searched for and or what particular book that they were browsing at the time that they found your book, clicked on it, and ordered it. So you can see the conversion. And you may find terms that are maybe something you didn't expect. And like, wow, I didn't know, early on, I didn't know what social emotional learning, like that was a thing. It wasn't a thing when I started with my books, but my books are very social emotional learning. So that term I hadn't targeted because I had not heard that before, or SEL, which is the same thing. So I started finding those kind of terms when Amazon decided to put my book in front of people that were searching for those things. And they did get clicks, they did move to conversions. So you just have to know where to look. And I always say, number one, stop the bleeding. If there's any terms that are costing you a fortune and not converting, stop those. Don't let them just keep going. And my rule is typically if it's got 10 clicks and no orders, then I'm turning it down to 2 cents just for a week. And if the orders don't plop in by the next time I check it, the Amazon Ads dashboard is behind, typically a few days. So I wouldn't want to turn it off without giving it a chance for some orders to come in. But if the orders don't come in and I see it's 2 cents, still no orders, I'm just turning off that term. So stop the bleeding. Number two, go find out what terms are working and make sure that you've got some runway there. So let's just use an example of I bid, say 72 cents for a term. It's converting at a high rate and my bid is, I paid 72 cents, my bid is 72 cents, but I have a really low ACoS, which means that I really want to give it a higher amount. So I want to raise the bid up so that it has a little runway. Just because it's getting a few orders now, if I give it a little bit higher bid, maybe Amazon will give me more impressions and then I'll get more conversions that will continue to help with. So I want to give that a little runway. So number one, stop the bleeding. Number two, give runway to the good keywords. And then number three, go search for those things in the search terms. Go look at what's working there and what's not working so that you can make some good judgments and then add some of those keywords to your keyword ad. If you discover something converting well, maybe a term you hadn't thought of, throw that in there. So the third step is really continuing to make your ads smarter with each and every week that you go in there and check. And the more that you do that, you're going to dial your Amazon ads in and it can't help but do better.
Do Amazon ads work better for any particular genres or just simply not work well at all for any genres?
I think that I've seen all genres work. I've helped with some nonfiction books, some fiction books. I've got a lot of children's book authors that I run ads for. But what I would say is that it really is about a number of things. Your book needs to speak to the market. Does it have is your idea a good one? Does it have a space in the market? Making sure that you're not confusing people. I have, for example, one author who had a book that if you looked at it on Amazon, it looked like it was a business book, but for an adult, but it was like a chapter book for a kid. So if you're confusing, whether it be with your hook, your description, or your cover, then it's not going to work out well. And, sometimes people don't find out until they get in and start running ads that, gee, there's really not the market for their book that they really thought. Or they don't really know their target audience as well as they thought they did. So I'm a big advocate of starting at the beginning and making sure that you vet your idea really well and that it has potential. It's not oversaturated, and that you vet that and the competitors and all of that ahead before you go and finish writing a book, right? Really vet the ideas. But by the time you get to Amazon ads, I have seen it work in all genres. And I've also seen it fail in all genres. So it really depends on sometimes the very crazy market that you expect one book to really rise and it doesn't. And then some other book you never had any idea it would do well. And then it just starts skyrocketing. There is that, chance, but I always say there may be an aspect of chance to this and getting your books in front of people. But the number one mistake I would say people make is giving up too soon. So if you're having trouble, get in front of a coach that can help walk through this and let you know what things you might be missing, because that can cause a number of issues that they can probably correct or find and identify the issue very quickly for you if they have a lot of ad experience.
Someone also asks, have you found that using KU comp authors is fine for non-KU book ads, or is it detrimental?
KU comp authors. I think it really is fine to use KU, but also, take a look. Don't just look at the last so many months of releases, but really look at comp titles that have been around a while and are still doing well years later. What is it about those comp titles that are having them skyrocketing and continuing to sell years later? Because you will learn an awful lot by finding those competitors and really doing a deep dive in how are they representing their books? How are they talking to their audience? How are they titling and what kind of subtitle do they have? What does their A+ look like? What are people saying in the reviews? Like really do a deep dive in your competitor books because they will be your best teachers.
You've mentioned A+ content a couple of times, and I'm sure not everyone is familiar with it. Can you talk a little bit about A+ content on Amazon and how that plays with Amazon ads and your product listing?
Sure. If you go to a listing and if you find your competitors and pull up the listing and you're on a desktop, you can scroll down to the bottom and it will say something like from the publisher. And you have the ability to add visual interest, some nice visuals with your book. I've seen romance authors like split up, like kind of almost like blinds, right? They'll take one image that talks about the tropes and maybe has a romantic couple embracing, and they'll put that in their A+ content. It's visual content, and Amazon has already said it based on their analysis, it does convert better if you have A+ content. So why not do it? It is something you can access yourself right in the marketing tab from your KDP. You can go and right below Amazon ads, you'll see A+ content. You can add modules, like a nice big module of an image. You can do smaller modules. There's a bunch of different ones you can choose from, and they're just different designed blocks that you can drop in. You can have up to 5. One of them that I really love is if you've got multiple books, make sure you put the comparison module in there, because you can add all of your other books and even make it shoppable so that at the bottom of your listing, all of your other books are there and there's an add to cart button on each one. So again, it is such an important, helpful thing to do. And with my children's book authors, it's an amazing opportunity to show off the beautiful illustrations that are inside. But even if you're not a children's book author, I've had an author who did like a Roman novel that was really exciting, but he had no interior images. So we just got some stock photos, stock images with that kind of Roman look and feel, and then described his book, talked about the tropes using some visuals. And it was an amazing difference before to after. I think it was like a 15% lift in his conversion with that one specific example. Now, I can't say that they'll all be that way. High quality A+ content is something that's really helpful. If you put bad content out there, it's probably not going to help you, but I do have an amazing design team and work with my authors to create those the A+ content as well, but you can do it yourself using Canva.
Yeah. And I think just to hit on something that you mentioned there, which I've seen before as well, is you use those visuals, and because, it's a book, it's not, it's not a mop or something that you can show, oh, here's how all the features of this mop. But think about what readers are really looking for in your books, right? So this goes back to those keywords, it goes back to those tropes. So if you've got a romance book, maybe you have an image, and over on the overlay it's like enemies to lovers, right? If that's one of the main tropes, like that's a trope that a lot of romance readers are looking for. And so if you put in that A+ content, any enemies to lovers, and you have an image just sort of back that up and grab the reader's attention, that can be extremely valuable. So doing other things around like your tropes and your keywords and those things that readers are actively searching for in their Amazon keywords, and using that as the basis for framing a lot of your A+ content can be a good way to sort of get started with that as well. And then, yeah, using stock photography is another good option there if you don't already have a bunch of interior images. If you're a fiction author and, the only thing that you've got is your book cover, finding stock photography can be a good way to go.
I'll give you another tip that you may not have even realized is with A+ content, when you add the images, they give you a keyword space. Amazon has shared that they index those keywords. So if you're looking for other ways to help your book get discovered, every single image you place in that A+ content has, I think, 50 characters or something of an additional keyword you can add in.
Oh, that's very valuable information to know as well. And someone says, is A+ content available for books traditionally published?
Well, if you don't have a KDP dashboard, in other words, maybe there's not an ebook or something that you have control over, then the short answer is no. But if you know somebody like me that can set it up in my Advantage or Vendor Central account, then I can set it up and tag it onto any book, including traditionally published books. And you can do that if you've got Advantage. So if you have an Advantage account, you may not even realize that you can set things up through Advantage and attach it to a book that is not part of your KDP.
Your publisher could do that for you as well. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would never move forward with doing something like that for somebody without the publisher's permission, because I wouldn't want that to come back on me. But I do the same thing, like Amazon KDP and their A+ content only allows you to attach your A+ content to KDP titles. So your ebook, your paperback on KDP. For some of my authors who are children's book authors, we want to have our hardcovers also tagged with the A+ content. But Amazon doesn't allow hardcovers unless you have at least 75 pages for your book. So it might not impact some of you, but for me, I will set up print on demand through Ingram Spark. And then when that Ingram Spark title goes in, I set more A+ content going directly to that Ingram Spark title. So I was able almost accidentally to figure out how to get around this issue, but now we can do it.
One thing that we've been talking about a lot is keywords, but there are probably a lot of authors who are asking themselves, like, how do I know which keywords are right? What recommendations do you have for authors, determining what keywords are most valuable for their books?
My initial techie, geeky, hat with the spinner that goes round and round, that's just my geekiness, right? When I first started, I was getting into a ton of keyword tools. Helium, for one. Publisher Rocket, I think every author should have it because it's got so many great benefits, one of which is being able to see other books' keywords and, reverse engineer it, but also be able to research your own. And I love something called KD Spy. It's probably one of my favorites because I just love how easy it is to use. It's a one-time, like Publisher Rocket, it's a one-time investment. I think it's like $65 and you get all of the updates, but I absolutely love it. And I created an AI program built off of ChatGPT. So it's a custom GPT called authorpreneur.ai. And I've been doing some training with that. And by the way, it's publicly available. You can go in and type in authorpreneur.ai. Now, if you have that AI get familiar with your book, tell it some information about your book, and then ask it to come up with keywords that are high search value, high search volume, lower level of competition. I was amazed. I was taking these keywords they were coming up with, putting them in my keyword trackers and my different tools. Green, 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 green. I'm like, oh my gosh, it would take me hours to come up with keywords. And now I'm using AI to help me identify the keywords that are high performing, have high potential, and not too much competition. And it's amazing. I'm going into my keyword tools now more just to verify the information, but I've dramatically reduced the amount of time that I'm having to spend on keywords.
Right, because those AI tools can hallucinate information
Mhm. Yep, I just
and
do a little
be wrong
testing.
about things. So,
Yep, I do basically I throw it into to Amazon, whatever keyword it comes up with, and then the Katie Spy tool is a Chrome extension, so I'm able to pull it up there, and it shows me all of the books that ranked for that keyword, what they're making, as well as whether there is good potential, and is it popular, and what kind of competition is out there. So it kind of does that green light, yellow light, red light kind of thing for those three. And I love it. I absolutely love it. Not to mention, same thing with Publisher Rocket. There's some great tools in that. Between those two tools and the AI, I've been able to really move forward very nicely. And I do have some great videos where I walk through this on my YouTube channel if anybody's interested in checking that out.
and I think you had mentioned there that Publisher Rocket was one-time purchase. I think they are moving to a subscription
Yes,
model,
I
though. I'm
saw
not
that. That
sure
made me
if they
so sad.
already I'm not sure if they've already moved to the subscription model yet or not, but I do know is happening soon when I saw the news about it. So,
Yeah, I would
another
grab
thing
it
to
now
keep in mind.
before it goes to a subscription model because it's a one-time fee and I've had it for 7 years now. And every time there's a new release, I get, more benefits and it doesn't cost me anything. So yeah, if you haven't purchased Publisher Rocket, I would highly recommend it. And you probably, Evan, you probably have like a link or something, some kind of a
No, I don't. I do not have an affiliate link or anything like that.
I do, so I can post it in there if anybody's interested. But yeah, definitely Publisher Rocket is an amazing opportunity. Especially the thing I love most in there is helping you to select categories that will, so that you know exactly how many sales you need to get to number one. And you can research different categories and keywords and in multiple markets. So it's quite powerful.
Very good. Yeah, and someone said that they saw it was going to turn into a subscription model starting on June 8th. So it might already be a couple days too late to get it on that one-time purchase option. That being said, it can definitely be the kind of thing where it's you can be useful to, subscribe for a bit test it out or use it, and then maybe you dip out for a bit and then come back again when you need it later, kind of thing as well. But to get back to Amazon ads, sort of last question here before we wrap things up, I would really like to understand, how long should an author run a campaign before deciding whether or not it's working or whether to start spending more money on it?
So if you're not getting so it depends. If you are not getting any impressions, there are times when it ends up being just a dud of an ad. Sorry about my throat. Excuse me. So if you see that happening, there are times you just have to start by raising your bid and seeing if you can get some traction. If nothing happens and it's been there for a month, then I would just close it down. With how long to continue running ads, I would say give it 2 to 3 months before you just abandon them, because the biggest mistake is just giving up too early and not seeing the benefit.
Yep, that makes a ton of sense. Awesome. Thank you, April, so much for taking your time to come chat with us today. Thank you, everyone, for coming out to listen to us. And April, if others are looking to get in contact with you or find more information about some of the stuff that you've already put out there, looks like you dropped in the chat, so they can check out selfpubmadesimple.com. And is there anywhere else that authors ought to follow?
Yeah, so I'm on YouTube. I have a lot of step-by-step videos walking through a lot of the things we talked about today. Also, the YouTube channel is Self-Publishing Made Simple with April Cox, the Self-Pub Made Simple on Facebook and Instagram. So yeah, feel free to follow along. There's lots of free events and things that we're doing. And I also have an Amazon ads work group that we're going to be putting together some hands-on training. It's going to last 12 weeks long with the goal of getting to the holidays with some ads that are really cranking along. So that's going to be starting up in July. So sign up for my mailing list. You'll be hearing more about it. And if you really want some hand-holding to get you to where you need to be, then I highly recommend joining that. And you'll have 12 weeks of live sessions and training and things we can do together to get your ads really working for you.
Thank you again so much for coming and chatting with us. And thank you, everyone, for attending. We will see you all in the next one.